a WikiVidi Documentaries production. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy. Halloween, 1978 film. Halloween is a 1978 American slasher film directed and scored by John Carpenter. Co-written with producer Debra Hill, and starring Donald Pleasence and Jamie Lee Curtis in her film debut. The film tells the story of serial killer Michael Myers as he stalks and kills teenage babysitters on Halloween night. The film predominantly focuses on Michael, who was committed to a sanitarium as a child for the murder of his older sister Judith Myers. 15 years later, he escapes to stalk and kill the people of the fictional town of Haddonfield, Illinois, while being chased by his former psychiatrist, Samuel Loomis. Michael stalks Laurie Strode and her friends as they babysit. The film was shot in the spring of 1978 in Southern California, and was released on October 25 by Compass International Pictures. It grossed $47 million at the box office in the United States, and $23 million internationally, for a total of $70 million worldwide, selling almost 30 million tickets in 1978 and becoming one of the most profitable independent films. Primarily praised for its direction and musical score, many credit the film as the first in a long line of slasher films inspired by Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. Some critics have suggested that Halloween may encourage sadism and misogyny by audiences identifying with its villain. Others have suggested the film is a social critique of the immorality of youth and teenagers in 1970s America, with many of Myers' victims being sexually promiscuous substance abusers, while the lone heroine is depicted as innocent and pure, hence her survival. Nonetheless, Carpenter dismisses such analyses. Halloween spawned a film franchise comprising 7 successful films which helped construct an extensive backstory for its antagonist Michael Myers, sometimes narratively diverging entirely from previous installments. A remake was released in 2007, which itself was followed by a sequel in 2009. An 11th installment, which serves as a direct sequel to the original film that ignores the existing sequels, is set to be released in October 2018, with Curtis reprising her role for the 4th time in the series. Additionally, a novelization, video game, and comic book series have been based on the film. In 2006, the film was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress as being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. Plot: in 1963, on Halloween night in the Midwestern town of Haddonfield, Illinois, Michael Myers, dressed in a clown costume and mask, inexplicably stabs his older sister Judith to death with a kitchen knife in their home. He is subsequently hospitalized at Warren County's Smith's Grove Sanitarium. 15 years later, on the night of October 30, 1978, Michael's child psychiatrist, Dr. Sam Loomis, and his colleague, Marion Chambers, arrive at Smith's Grove Sanitarium to escort Michael to court. Michael escapes from the sanitarium, stealing Loomis' car. Returning home to Haddonfield, Michael kills a mechanic for his uniform and steals a white mask, knives, and rope from a local hardware store. The next day, on Halloween, Michael stalks high school student Laurie Strode. Throughout the day, Laurie notices Michael following her, but her friends Annie Brackett and Linda Van Der Klock dismiss her concerns. Loomis arrives in Haddonfield in search of Michael, knowing his intentions. After discovering that Judith Myers' headstone has been stolen from the local cemetery, Loomis meets with Annie's father, Sheriff Lee Brackett. The two begin their search at the former Myers house, where Loomis tries to warn the skeptical sheriff about the danger Michael poses, explaining that Michael is pure evil and capable of further violence, despite years of catatonia. Sheriff Brackett patrols the streets while Loomis waits and watches the house, expecting Michael to return there. Later that night, Laurie babysits Tommy Doyle, while Annie babysits Lindsay Wallace just across the street, unaware that Michael has followed them. When Annie's boyfriend, Paul, calls her to come and pick him up, she takes Lindsay over to the Doyle house to spend the night with Laurie and Tommy. Annie is just about to leave in her car when Michael, who stowed away in the back seat, strangles her before slitting her throat, killing her. Soon after, Linda and her boyfriend Bob Sims arrive at the Wallace house. After having sex, Bob goes downstairs to get a beer for Linda, but Michael stabs him with a knife which pins him to the wall, killing him. Michael then poses as Bob in a ghost costume and confronts Linda, who teases him, having no effect. Linda calls Laurie. Just as Laurie picks up, Michael strangles Linda to death with the telephone cord. Meanwhile, Loomis discovers the stolen car and begins combing the streets. Suspicious, Laurie goes over to the Wallace house. There, she finds the corpses of Annie, Bob, and Linda in an upstairs bedroom, as well as Judith Myers' headstone. Horrified, Laurie cowers in the hallway, when Michael suddenly appears and attacks her, slashing her arm. Barely escaping, Laurie races back to the Doyle house. Michael gets in and attacks her again, but Laurie manages to fend him off long enough for Tommy and Lindsay to escape. Laurie defends herself by stabbing him with a knitting needle, a metal hanger, and his own knife. But Michael reanimates and attacks Laurie. Loomis sees the two children fleeing the house, and goes to investigate, finding Michael and Laurie fighting upstairs. Loomis shoots Michael 6 times, knocking him off the balcony. When Loomis goes to check Michael's body, he finds it missing. Loomis stares off into the night, while Laurie begins sobbing in terror. Themes. Many criticisms of Halloween and other slasher films come from postmodern academia. Some feminist critics, according to historian Nicholas Rogers, have seen the slasher movies since Halloween as debasing women in as decisive a manner as hardcore pornography. Critics such as John Kenneth Muir state that female characters such as Laurie Strode survive not because of any good planning or their own resourcefulness, but sheer luck. Although she manages to repel the killer several times, in the end, Strode is rescued in Halloween and Halloween 2 only when Dr. Loomis arrives to shoot Myers. Other feminist scholars such as Carol J. Clover argue that despite the violence against women, Halloween and other slasher films turned women into heroines. In many pre-Halloween horror films, women are depicted as helpless victims and are not safe until they are rescued by a strong masculine hero. Despite the fact that Loomis saves Strode, Clover asserts that Halloween initiates the role of the final girl, who ultimately triumphs in the end. Strode fights back against Myers and severely wounds him. Had Myers been a normal man, Strode's attacks would have killed him. Even Loomis, the male hero of the story, who shoots Michael repeatedly at near point-blank range with a large-caliber handgun, cannot kill him. Aviva Briefel argued that moments such as when Michael's face was temporarily revealed are meant to give pleasure to the male viewer. Briefel further argues that these moments are masochistic in nature and give pleasure to men, because they are willingly submitting themselves to the women of the film. They submit themselves temporarily, because it will make their return to authority even more powerful. Critics, such as Pat Gill, see Halloween as a critique of American social values. She remarks that parental figures are almost entirely absent throughout the film, noting that when Laurie is attacked by Michael while babysitting, no parents, either of the teenagers or of the children left in their charge, call to check on their children or arrive to keen over them. Another major theme found in the film is the dangers of premarital sex. Clover believes that killers in slasher films are fueled by a psychosexual fury, and that all the killings are sexual in nature. She reinforces this idea by saying that guns have no place in slasher films. And when examining the film I Spit on Your Grave, she notes that a hands-on killing answers a hands-on rape in a way that a shooting, even a shooting preceded by a humiliation, does not. Equating sex with violence is important in Halloween and the slasher genre, according to Pat Gill, who made a note of this in her essay, The Monstrous Years, Teens, Slasher Films, and the Family. She remarks that Laurie's friends think of their babysitting jobs as opportunities to share drinks and beds with their boyfriends. One by one they are killed by Michael Myers, an asylum escapee who years ago at the age of 6 murdered his sister for preferring sex to taking care of him. The dangers of suburbia is another major theme that runs throughout the film. And the slasher genre at large. Pat Gill states that slasher films seem to mock white flight to gated communities, in particular the attempts of parents to shield their children from the dangerous influences represented by the city. Halloween and slasher films, generally, represent the underside of suburbia. Myers was raised in a suburban household, and after he escapes the mental hospital he returns to his hometown to kill again. Myers is a product of the suburban environment. Michael is thought by some to represent evil in the film. This is based on the common belief that evil never dies, nor evil shows any remorse. This idea is demonstrated in the film when Dr. Loomis discusses Michael's history with the sheriff. Loomis states, "I spent 8 years trying to reach him, Michael Myers, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up. Because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil." Loomis also refers to Michael as evil when he hijacks his car at the sanitarium. Carpenter himself dismisses the notion that Halloween is a morality play, regarding it as merely a horror film. According to Carpenter, critics completely missed the point there. He explains, "The one girl who is the most sexually uptight just keeps stabbing this guy with a long knife. She's the most sexually frustrated. She's the one that's killed him. Not because she's a virgin, but because all that sexually repressed energy starts coming out. She uses all those phallic symbols on the guy." Aesthetic elements. Historian Nicholas Rogers notes that film critics contend that Carpenter's direction and camera work made Halloween a resounding success. Roger Ebert remarks, "It's easy to create violence on the screen, but it's hard to do it well. Carpenter is uncannily skilled, for example, at the use of foregrounds in his compositions, and everyone who likes thrillers knows that foregrounds are crucial." The opening title, featuring a jack-o'-lantern placed against a black backdrop, sets the mood for the entire film. The camera slowly moves toward the jack-o'-lantern's left eye as the main title theme plays. After the camera fully closes in, the jack-o'-lantern's light dims and goes out. Film historian J.P. Tellett says that this scene clearly announces that the film's primary concern will be with the way in which we see ourselves and others, and the consequences that often attend our usual manner of perception. Carpenter's first-person point-of-view compositions were employed with Steadicam. Tellett argues, as a result of this shift in perspective from a disembodied narrative camera to an actual character's eye, we are forced into a deeper sense of participation in the ensuing action. Along with the 1974 Canadian horror film Black Christmas, Halloween made use of seeing events through the killer's eyes. The first scene of the young Michael's voyeurism is followed by the murder of Judith seen through the eye holes of Michael's clown costume mask. According to scholar Nicholas Rogers, Carpenter's frequent use of the unmounted first-person camera to represent the killer's point of view invited viewers to adopt the murderer's assaultive gaze and to hear his heavy breathing and plodding footsteps as he stalked his prey. Film analysts have also noted its delayed or withheld representations of violence, characterized as the false startle or the old tap on the shoulder routine, in which the stalkers, murderers, or monsters lunge into our field of vision or creep up on a person. Critic Susan Stark described the film's opening sequence in her 1978 review. Concept. After viewing Carpenter's film Assault on Precinct 13 at the Milan Film Festival, independent film producer Erwin Yablans and financier Mustafa Akkad sought out Carpenter to direct a film for them about a psychotic killer that stalked babysitters. In an interview with Fangoria magazine, Yablans stated, "I was thinking what would make sense in the horror genre, and what I wanted to do was make a picture that had the same impact as The Exorcist." Carpenter agreed to direct the film contingent on his having full creative control, and was paid $10,000 for his work, which included writing, directing, and scoring the film. He and his then-girlfriend Debra Hill began drafting a story originally titled The Babysitter Murders. Yablans subsequently suggested setting the movie on Halloween night and naming it Halloween instead, to which Carpenter agreed. Screenplay. It took approximately 10 days to write the screenplay. Yablans and Akkad ceded most of the creative control to writers Carpenter and Hill, but Yablans did offer several suggestions. According to a Fangoria interview with Hill, Yablans wanted the script written like a radio show, with booze every 10 minutes. By Hill's recollection, the script took 3 weeks to write. and much of the inspiration behind the plot came from Celtic traditions of Halloween such as the Festival of Samhain. Although Samhain is not mentioned in the plot of the first film, Hill asserts that Hill, who had worked as a babysitter during her teenage years, wrote most of the female characters' dialogue, while Carpenter drafted Loomis' speeches on the soullessness of Michael Myers. Many script details were drawn from Carpenter's and Hill's own backgrounds and early careers. The fictional town of Haddonfield, Illinois was derived from Haddonfield, New Jersey, where Hill was raised. While several of the street names were taken from Carpenter's hometown of Bowling Green, Kentucky, Laurie Strode was allegedly the name of one of Carpenter's old girlfriends, while Michael Myers was the name of an English producer who had previously entered with Yablans, Assault on Precinct 13 in various European film festivals. Homage is also paid to Alfred Hitchcock with two characters' names. Tommy Doyle is named after Lieutenant Det. Thomas J. Doyle from Rear Window, and Dr. Loomis' name was derived from Sam Loomis from Psycho, the boyfriend of Marion Crane. Sheriff Lee Brackett shared the name of a Hollywood screenwriter and frequent collaborator of Howard Hawks in devising the backstory for the film's villain, Michael Myers. Carpenter drew on haunted house folklore that exists in many small American communities. Most small towns have a kind of haunted house story of one kind or another, he stated. At least that's what teenagers believe. There's always a house down the lane that somebody was killed in, or that somebody went crazy in. Carpenter's inspiration for the evil that Michael would embody came from a visit he had taken during college to a psychiatric institution in Kentucky. There, he visited a ward with his psychology classmates where the most serious, mentally ill patients were held. Among those patients was an adolescent boy who possessed a blank, schizophrenic stare. Carpenter's experience would inspire the characterization that Loomis would give of Michael to Sheriff Brackett in the film. Casting. The cast of Halloween included veteran actor Donald Pleasence and then unknown actress Jamie Lee Curtis. The low budget limited the number of big names that Carpenter could attract, and most of the actors received very little compensation for their roles. Pleasence was paid the highest amount at $20,000, Curtis received $8,000, and Nick Castle earned $25 a day. The role of Dr. Loomis was originally intended for Peter Cushing, who had recently appeared as Grand Moff Tarkin in Star Wars. Cushing's agent rejected Carpenter's offer due to the low salary. Christopher Lee was also approached for the role. He too turned it down, although the actor would later tell Carpenter and Hill that declining the role was the biggest mistake he made during his career. Yablans then suggested Pleasence, who agreed to star, because his daughter Lucy, a guitarist, had enjoyed Assault on Precinct 13 for Carpenter's score. In an interview, Carpenter admits that Jamie Lee wasn't the first choice for Laurie. I had no idea who she was. She was 19 and in a TV show at the time, but I didn't watch TV. He originally wanted to cast Anne Lockhart, the daughter of June Lockhart from Lassie, as Laurie Strode. However, Lockhart have commitments to several other film and television projects. Hill says of learning that Jamie Lee was the daughter of Psycho actress Janet Leigh, I knew casting Jamie Lee would be great publicity for the film, because her mother was in Psycho. Curtis was cast in the part, though she initially had reservations as she felt she identified more with the other female characters. I was very much a smart aleck, and was a cheerleader in high school, so I felt very concerned that I was being considered for the quiet, repressed young woman when in fact I was very much like the other two girls. Another relatively unknown actress, Nancy Kyes, was cast as Laurie's outspoken friend Annie Brackett, daughter of Haddonfield Sheriff Lee Brackett. Kyes had previously starred in Assault on Precinct 13 and happened to be dating Halloween's art director Tommy Lee Wallace when filming began. Carpenter chose PJ Soles to play Linda Van Der Klock, another loquacious friend of Laurie's, best remembered in the film for dialogue peppered with the word, totally. Soles was an actress known for her supporting role in Carrie and her minor part in The Boy in the Plastic Bubble. According to Soles, she was told after being cast that Carpenter had written the role with her in mind. Soles' then-husband, actor Dennis Quaid, was considered for the role of Bob Sims, Linda's boyfriend, but was unable to perform the role due to prior work commitments. The role of The Shape, as the masked Michael Myers character was billed in the end credits, was played by Nick Castle, who befriended Carpenter while they attended the University of Southern California. After Halloween, Castle became a director, taking the helm of films such as The Last Starfighter, The Boy Who Could Fly, Dennis the Menace, and Major Payne. Brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries. Would you like to know more?